Oh, hey Archons. You caught me deep in contemplation, and this contemplation is a big part of what today's Key Thoughts is about. And that is, as you may have read on the video of the title, to sass or not to sass. That's the question today. I've been wrestling with this idea for a while now. Reason being is I really cannot decide whether I want to import my WoW decks into DoK and know their SAS. But before we get into this full discussion, let's talk about the card of the day. So card of the day is going to be coming from Winds of Exchange, House Saurian, and that is Epic Poem. Exalt a friendly creature, gain 1 for each ember on that creature. It is an action card from House Saurian. I really like this one. The reason why I like this card so much is because of the opportunity cost. You can be capturing a ton of ember with the Praetor Dino, which says reap and capture an ember for each exhausted creature to the left of Praetor. And that's just fantastic. I mean, you're capturing a bunch of ember to potentially take your opponent off check, and then you're gaining that ember. That is the best way, because I think the exalt way, where you're constantly exalting a creature and getting it, is interesting, but then you're allowing your opponent the opportunity to take that ember back. So my favorite combo with that is the Praetor with Epic Poem, which does happen to exist in the deck I took that one from. So Epic Poem is the feature card this week because I just really like its opportunity cost potential of how you can utilize it in different ways to burst, but you're allowing your opponent the potential to come back with it. There is some cool Ember cards, Ember control cards in the set that can be utilized with it. Rant and Rave is definitely on the top of the list, where you can give your opponent the opportunity when you have that in hand to take it back. And then you're not worrying about it because you're going to make them lose most of it. So yeah, I just really like that card, and I think it created some interesting usage of Ember on Saurian creatures, or Sanctum creatures for that matter, depending on the composition of your deck alongside Saurian. Let's get into the topic though for this week, which is to sass or not to sass. So basically, I had a display that I was going through over this past month, and as I've alluded to, I've goldfished and I have been playing it within itself. I have not imported it into DoK at all. There was no SAS until recently, but now that there is, I don't know if I want to cross that bridge, because one of those things, once you do it, there's no going back. And I haven't been in this position where I haven't had decks to have that knowledge, and especially so many decks, for quite some time. So it's just creating this conundrum of, do I really want to know how strong they are? And the answer is no. I've decided that I am going to hold off and just play my decks and get a feel and figure out how I like them. I'm not sure the degree in which I will go down this path, but I know I'm going to hold off for quite some time and just see how the decks feel, figure out my own enjoyment, and then do it, because I don't want any bias from the rating system to maybe impact the way that I am viewing these decks. I want to play them and enjoy them for the merit that I've put to them. I have 2 that I scanned. They both were the same 72 SAS, and they were the 2 decks I got that were KFC decks that Sydney sent me, and they were both the exact same power, but one seemed way stronger than the other. But they were rated exactly the same, and I played it against a pretty monstrous deck. And I've played it against tons of decks, and it does really well. And my knowledge of the deck definitely makes it better than just the score. And for those of you who are going to be tuning in to the upcoming episode of Help from Future Self dropping on Monday, you will also get to hear some insight of why. But part of it is the WoW complexity level allows for decks to not just surface level be what they seem. So I think I'm going to do a different episode on that topic in and itself, but I just wanted to share my thoughts about how I'm going to actually abstain from scanning my WoW decks into decks of KeyForge. And I would also encourage you to maybe hold off when you're just getting your product. Play them, just get a feel for the set within itself. Play with your friends. Don't scan anything. Maybe wait a little bit and see how it feels. It's honestly a really weird feeling because you really want to scan them and just know, like you have to know. It's almost like Schrodinger's cat theory. Like, it's not actually officially bad potentially until you see the score says it's bad. So yeah, I think that if you can and are willing to hold off from going full DoK mode for your decks, do so. Allow yourself a beat to enjoy them within themselves and with your fellow friends who play KeyForge, and just see what they have to offer beyond a score, and play all of them a bunch of times. Maybe once you've played them all a bunch of times, you're like, oh, I really like these decks, I don't like these decks as much. Then maybe you can go about putting them in DoK. And then maybe you'll find out the decks you didn't like actually have a high score and you want to take more time with them. And then you can see that maybe decks that didn't score high actually performed really well for you. And you can keep that information for future. So yeah, I recommend even doing a thing like using your known SAS score decks that are not WoW to go against decks that you're seeing rising to the top of your testing and they're actually performing quite well. See if they can beat those other decks, because that could give you some interesting insight. Like, maybe the score isn't as important as you thought, but maybe it's going to be a good reference for, okay, at this SAS level score, this deck stops performing. Maybe it's a matchup, but maybe it's an actual score thing. Like, it only can hold its weight in this level, and once we hit this number, the deck starts to come down a little bit. So just wanted to put that thought out there and that contemplation for everyone to maybe consider before going gung-ho and importing everything and without even playing them. Yeah, I definitely like the idea of playing decks before you see the score and seeing how you feel. It's a really fun and interesting exercise, and it's freeing in a way. I don't know how to describe it in a way. There's a sense of freedom, but there's also this itch back here that's like, what is it? What is it? So hope you enjoyed this, and as always, friends, may your ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.